March 27th, meeting of Des Moines Waterworks Board of Trustees. It's approximately 3:30. We'll start with the consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
So second.
Any comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. Let's see. I get behind. Item 2, we have a period for public comment. Anybody that wants to say anything about anything. They have 5 minutes. During any item, we'll also give the public a chance to speak. So if you want to talk about an item, you may want to wait till that time. But anything else? Is there anybody who'd like to say anything today? Yes. If you want to stand up here and introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Jesse Lindsay, and wanted to express my opinion about the practice of water fluoridation in Des Moines and surrounding areas. First became concerned about it with 2 newborn children and the health effects of fluoridation on people. So fluoride is classified as a regulated drug, so the practice of fluoridating the public water supply is the unregulated medication of the public without their consent or knowledge of being medicated. This medication is unregulated and affects people of different ages and sizes differently. The correct dosage of fluoride for an active man of my size would be very different from a newborn baby who is drinking baby formula with fluoridated water. The benefits of fluoride are only found when the fluoride is applied topically. You lose those benefits when the fluoride is simply ingested. Swallowing fluoride has no benefits for your teeth. If you read the warning label on the back of your toothpaste, you will find that fluoride is poison, and you should contact poison control and seek medical attention if you've swallowed too much. Fluoride is being banned throughout Europe because of safety and health concerns, and I believe we should consider following suit. There should be no burden on the public to find unmedicated water for their families to drink. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Address.
Yeah, do you have an address, and then they
Yep.
need to mail you something they can?
Sure.
I'd like to say.
Yeah, sure. In case you didn't know, we had a group or several groups in here last year, and we had some meetings. We had doctors come in and testify, and the board takes it seriously. And
I appreciate that. I'm sure that you guys do.
and we're open to any new information.
Okay. There's a lot of conflicting information out there, and I think if you guys look into it, you'll see that there is another side to the story. And we obviously should, go to the safe side when you're talking about medicating people. And you find fluoride in a lot of poisons. It is a poison. And so anyways, there's a lot of conflicting information, and I think it's worth looking at the other side.
Thank you for taking your time.
Thank you.
And one more guy? Okay.
Yeah, I'd just like to follow up with...
I'll give your name and address.
I'm Bill Hamilton. My address is 2240 Southwest 11th Street, Des Moines, Iowa, 50315. And yeah, I remember the meetings. I was involved in the meetings last year.
Okay.
And I've come back because he's requested me back. He missed me. No, I'm just kidding. No, I gave him a lot of grief last year. And I appreciate you listening to what I had to say last year. The guy who came in to testify was with the Iowa Public Health Service, and he's affiliated with the national version of that, which is connected with very special interest groups from the aluminum industry. And he has a very hidden agenda when he's promoting fluoride. There's a lot to it. It's the same people who basically, the people who promote fluoride, it's the same people who have done PR campaigns for tobacco, asbestos, DDT. They hire the same people. It's a lot of bot science. Anyway, my main concern with fluoride is that it's not been safety tested by anybody, not by the EPA, the CDC, the FDA, Waterworks, the company you bought it from, nobody. So there's been 0 safety tests on silicofluorides, which is what is in the fluoride. It's hydrofluorosilicic acid, which has silicofluorides in it. Your engineer claimed that the silica disassociates from the fluoride, but during our discussion last year, and I tried to raise a point from back there that that's been proven not true by a German scientist, and I have the report right here. I actually have a whole stack of peer-reviewed science that shows that fluoride is not healthy, not safe, not even effective. But the point that I want to make is that all of Europe has banned it. There's been 4,000 professionals that have spoke out against it. So this raises obvious concerns, and if it doesn't raise any doubts in your mind, just because they've raised these concerns, then something's wrong, either with the fact that there's no doubt in your mind, or if there is a doubt in your mind, that's cause also for concern that, you know, you're putting in the water. The FDA has labeled it an unapproved prescription medication, and it's a drug claim basically that the fluoride companies are giving us, you know. And this is cause for concern because none of you are doctors, yet you're administering a prescription medication to us. I mean, I don't think anybody here is a doctor, right? In Southern California, they have filed a lawsuit against the Metro Water Authority, and it was filed last August, and it's going to court based on the fact that people don't want to be medicated with a drug against their will. If somebody wants fluoride, they can just buy fluoridated toothpaste. It's as simple as that. You know, it's only effective topically. So why are we drinking it? You know, even the CDC, who promotes fluoride, admits that. You know, at some point you have to ask, who's defrauding who? Is the fluoride company and special interest groups defrauding you, or are you defrauding the public? And I don't think you're defrauding us. I think that you're being defrauded because you look like nice people. And I don't think you intentionally, you know, want to put any of us in danger or your own families who drink the water too. So I think this is something that you need to review. Ask yourselves, is this worth it? You know? Just buy a tube of toothpaste if you want fluoride. That's all I have to say.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Randy, if, you know, if any of the staff had anything about Europe that it is banned everywhere, it'd be interesting, even if you find a story somewhere.
Yeah, we found some information on that back at that time, and we can resurrect that.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Anybody else? I guess that's it. Okay.
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, Jim.
You know, one thing that was kind of new for me in the past year, and it's been recent, is the cause of all the dental problems that kids are coming up with now because of all the bottled water. And I think that would be an interesting thing to maybe follow up on a little bit, because it has a correlation
Because they're not
between
drinking
fluoride that's in the water and not. So I'm not expert enough to figure that out, but it caught my eye when they said that a lot of young kids, you know, infants, not infants, but young growing kids, are going to the dentist and having work done on their baby teeth and some permanent teeth because of the exclusive use of bottled water. So I would say that would be something else you might want to look at too as you look at that item. And that's just recent.
It appeared it's kind of a balance, the benefits and.
I don't know, just a point.
No, that's good.
There was a question.
Yeah,
There are several studies that have been done that you can look at that talk about the effects of fluoride when used topically versus just ingested, and they're pretty stark.
okay. I appreciate everybody.
Also, sorry, one last thing. Like I said, look at the science that you're referencing. A lot of it's been proven to be unsubstantial and very biased. A lot of third parties have reviewed the science promoting fluoride and found it to be flawed. So a lot of this is the main go-to studies that people reference when they promote fluoride. You have to do a lot of research to come up with the right answers.
Thank you for taking the time. Thank you. It from everybody? Okay, we'll go to action items. The first item is the City of Des Moines Human Resources Proposal. Leslie, this is your committee. Do you want to start out, or what do you
Well,
think?
we've been talking about, for a long time, I've been wanting from the HR subcommittee to get a informational only proposal from the City of Des Moines on possibly outsourcing some HR services. And I think we're at the point that we're ready to, I'd like to make a motion to ask the city for that information. And at this time, it's only information.
And this
We
is
just
just,
got to get it and look at it and see if
this
it's
be just
anything
a
we're interested
service
in.
like we do for the solid waste, like the city does for wastewater, the
Right.
airport, like
Yes,
West
hiring
Des
out
Moines
as
does for
a service,
West Des
not
Moines Water Works.
combining anything.
Just purely service.
Yep.
Are you asking, just be clear so that it's on the record, are you asking for the city to kind of continue the conversation you've had and look at the list of services that we provide through HR and then provide some sort of feedback on what they could provide
Yes.
for us? But you're not asking them for anything specific, more specific than that? Am I
No,
right?
I am not. I am not.
So you're just asking them to provide us with some sort of a,
Mhm.
which they've said in your committee meeting, and I believe was said at our last meeting, or at the finance committee meeting, they were willing to do that.
Yes.
Okay.
And they're so much larger that maybe they can do it cheaper.
Right. And also, you don't know at this point exactly what they might bring back to us. They might bring back to us some sort of a proposal that we would vote on. We might ask them for more information, correct? I mean, we don't
Yeah,
know what they're coming
This
back
is
with.
informational. At this point, it's information.
That, I just wanted to
All
be
I'm
clear
asking
about
for.
this.
Yeah, no,
Thank you.
I'm only asking for information.
Okay, so you've made your, I guess we have the motion kind of,
Well, it's not very well expressed, I wouldn't say. Let me see. So I guess I would say I'm requesting the City of Des Moines HR Department to prepare a proposal for providing HR services, Des Moines Waterworks. Des Moines Waterworks staff is to give full and timely cooperation to any request for information from the city HR department.
I guess, did we have our discussion already?
Well, I mean, I guess you need a second.
Oh, we have a second, sorry. Do we have a second to Leslie's motion?
I'll second it, but then I have
Okay, now discussion.
Yeah, just a discussion. You use the word proposal and you use request for information. It really is a request for information, right? We're not
It is probably more of a
seeking.
request for information.
So if we could just modify that so that it says, request for information, I just think that's the fair way to do it, and our attorney can tell us differently. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not putting out an RFP here.
No,
No,
you're not.
no.
And I don't want any confusion about that. Am I right to clarify that?
Understood, yes.
Good.
Mr. Chairman, may I speak?
Yeah,
to the question?
sure.
Thank you. EJ Jovanetti, 3004 Melanie in the fine city of Urbandale. And we do buy our water from you, just in case you were wondering. Thank you. Mr. Chairman and members of the board, let me just, I want to pick up a little bit on the conversation that you're having regarding the City of Des Moines Human Services proposal as I read it on the agenda. First of all, I'm no longer chairman of the Central Iowa Regional Drinking Water, but I am a member and immediate past chair. And I do not want it, I do not want you to think I'm here on their behalf at the moment. However, I do have some concerns and want to share those with you as you journey through this particular issue. We came to you, the association came to you some time ago with a resolution asking that you consider a study to look at the old question of governance. And I think that went to the City of Des Moines City Council, and I think it's there now. I also know that it was a recommendation out of Capital Crossroads, and the governance committee of the Capital Crossroads is now considering that issue. And I know there are a lot of folks who are discussing it. I also know, and I commend your chairman, who's reached out to establish and improve, I think, the whole relationship between the people who buy water. And I think it's a very critical time that we continue a discussion about governance. Now, having said that, I'm questioning whether or not the environment is this environment is a time to be asking questions that may be misconstrued. That's why I think Leslie and Graham, I appreciate your clarification of the whole issue, because I would really be concerned, am concerned, as to whether a request or a proposal regarding any function of the water board, the utility, be misconstrued as a possible dismantling to avoid the question of governance. So I really think it's important, if you proceed with this, that the message be sent in the manner that I think you intend. If you're asking for information, that's one thing, but I think, as Graham has pointed out, a proposal is a whole different issue. So when I saw it on the agenda, I just felt that it wouldn't be a bad idea for me to come and ask for a clear, a very finite definition, so that there is no misunderstanding, because I think we're moving ahead. And again, I take my hat off to David I know he's having a dialogue with some of the folks that are in the community who buy water from you, and I think that's wonderful, and I think there's a whole effort to open up the door to discussion about some of the issues that we've been dealing with over the last couple of years. And I just am concerned that it get off track, and I really don't want that to happen. So I bring that to you and respectfully ask that you consider those comments. I really think it's important. But, and thank you for the chance to chat.
EJ, thank you for, just saying what you think. That's what we need.
And thank you for your efforts, David. I think it's gone a long way.
Well, it's a good group, and we're a regional water works. I don't know if the board wants to deal with the governance, but, other people will, and we're going to keep the waterworks functioning well.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Sue?
I made this point in the Finance and Audit meeting, and I've talked to Leslie since that time. Just to be clear, I am opposed to this motion that has been made. And there are basically three reasons. First of all, we spent an hour and a half as a committee trying to figure out exactly what our cost is to deliver HR services. And I think this comes from some of the frustration that Leslie has. And I know it may be too little too late, but we have work plans, we have a budget, and I don't think either one of these items would come in the same form for us to do an apples to apples comparison when we get an RFI back with any kind of cost figures. So how will we even know if we're saving money is my point. And I think as I concluded the finance meeting, I said, okay, we have three different figures here before us. What is our figure? And we could not come to an agreement. So in my mind, this is a waste of staff time. It's a waste of city time when we can't even compare this to what our true costs are. Which brings me to, we are going to be conducting a search for a new CEO. Randy is retiring. And I think this sends the wrong message to any potential candidate pool, that we are talking about outsourcing a portion, whether it's some of the services or all of the services, when we are within, a matter of months of having a new CEO in. If this is a priority for us, I think this is what we need to communicate to the candidate, that we're looking for every possible way that we can to save money to those that buy water from us. And finally, I would say if we're going to outsource, why not outsource it to any HR group? Why are we only looking at the city of Des Moines? Why don't we really take the time to say, what is it that we're wanting to do? Is it training? Is it recruitment? Is it benefit facilitation? I mean, what is it that we're trying to do other than, by the motion that you said, HR services? That doesn't really tell me what it is we're wanting to do. So I think the bigger question, and I think one we need to deal with, is what is our cost of service? And what we all understand now is that we're looking at work plans and trying to bring that down to the level of knowing what our true costs are. I think we have some work to do before we ask someone else how to do our work.
Okay. I'd like to, I have some thoughts to share as well.
Okay.
We have been trying to get this information for probably 9 months. I have been trying to get some information, and I feel like it's been less than successful. They've known we don't know what the costs are. They tried to explain it to us last week. None of us understood what was going on. I paid my accountant to explain it to me. And it's still confusing. My opinion is maybe by the time we get some information back, they will have sharpened their pencil and have some numbers we can understand. I mean, that's not my fault. I don't know why we can't get any numbers that we can understand when we've been asking for this for how long. I'm kind of tired of waiting. I think we need to make a move. And the reason we're asking the city is we had that meeting to share services with them, and we didn't really, or if there was any way that we could save some money is what we looked at. And that's why I was looking at them, because we had that meeting. It could be something else, I don't know, but that's just the direction I was going, because that's what we had talked about. I also, frankly, I don't see how this is any different than, it seems like every single board meeting, we're voting on contracts to subcontract out work out in the field to some other company. And I assume we do that to save money. And I look at this the same way. I don't know that we've really looked at contracting out anything in the office. I think we have in the field, and I think we do it at dang near every meeting. And I don't see this as being all that different. I know that the costs are high. And I'm just trying to get some information to see if we can do a little better with our costs.
Leslie, my concern is how will you know if that information is good information or more expensive than what we're currently spending when we don't have our arms around what it's costing us today? That
maybe they'll figure it out by the time it comes back. I mean, how long do we have to wait for a number we can understand? I'm tired of waiting. Maybe they'll figure it out by the time a number comes back.
And I've looked around, I couldn't find any other waterworks that does their own HR in Iowa. Waterloo has 35 employees, and they do their own. They just said they go out and hire somebody. But everybody else, well, wastewater over here has the city apparently does them okay. They haven't dismantled them. The airport is more independent than ever. You know, somebody, if West Des Moines wants to make an offer, that's okay. You know, I think a private one's going to be tougher to bring in because they're not used to working in the government sphere as easily. But I kind of agree with Leslie. This may get things off center because it's so frustrating. Yeah, Graham.
It's kind of funny. I kind of agree with Sue and Leslie, if that's possible, on this, because we did start this conversation a year ago, if you will, with the city in pursuing some avenues where we could share services, and I feel like we're long overdue for some sort of a discussion about that, and so I'd like to push that forward. I also, and Sue is absolutely right, we are at a period right now where we're have begun the search for a new CEO and general manager. That person, if everything goes right, will be in place sometime in September. And so I could see why we would want to be sensitive to that change in leadership as we go forward. That being said, I think these two can run on parallel tracks for a while. We may get some information back from the city and very well decide, let's wait till the CEO search is over to if there's any action required or what have you. We just don't know that.
Right.
I also think that Sue's point is right too, that as we get information back from the city, as we look into this ourselves, as we look into our questions about certain costs, we may determine there are other options we'd like to pursue in the private sector, with other public entities, all of the above. And we may find that out as we go along. Again, I don't think the request we're making of the city ties our hands from doing that.
I'm not trying to bind us to the
And
city.
I get
Really
that.
not.
And so, I mean, I think, you know, I share Sue's concerns about, you know, what this can mean, as I do EJ's concern when he came to address us. We need to be very careful about, you know, the protection of Des Moines Water Works and what we are as an entity, our relationship with the city, our relationship with our customers, including those in the suburbs. But I'm comfortable voting for this, just knowing that we're requesting for information, just so everybody at this table and everybody else understands that when we finally get that information, I may be the first guy that raises his hand and says, let's hold up and let's do some of these other things first.
I might be too.
I agree with that. I understand that.
May I ask a point of clarification?
Sure.
Because you've had far more committee meetings with the city folks. I had heard at one time that the city is not interested in doing kind of a menu approach, maybe doing training, maybe doing recruiting. They're interested in only doing it all. Is that your understanding? Or
I don't know that we've
do you-
asked them for parts of it. We haven't really talked.
so
about
are
it.
you going to be asking them for parts of it or doing it all?
I just want to see what can they do. Overall, what can they do? And that would be utilizing our people that we have. I mean, not,
That motion doesn't say that. I mean, if that's your intent, I know that was our discussion. You know, we heard from union folks that they are very interested in seeing a change within HR,
Mhm.
but they
we can add
support
that.
keeping it here.
We can add that.
So, I mean, I think we have to be, again, I am opposed to this for all of these reasons, because I don't think we've refined it, and I also think it sends the wrong message when we're out trying to recruit a CEO to run this organization. But be very clear in what you ask them to do, because you've asked our staff to make themselves available. I'm assuming you're asking for this to come back to you in a certain amount of time. They're going to be expending resources, so I had heard, and maybe it's incorrectly, that they're only interested in doing it all. But now I hear you say, well, maybe parts, maybe, you know, a piece of it, having them here.
We just need to get the information first before, you know, I mean,
But-
they're going to give an overall proposal or information. I'm not asking for pieces right now.
Jim, did you have something?
Just a couple observations, you know. My feeling is that this came out of a statement that the board made maybe a year and a half ago. EJ was here, we raised the water rates, and we said we're gonna turn every stone over to see how efficient we can be so that we can keep the costs, cut the costs, whatever, because we don't want to have to keep raising water rates just because. And so I think, you know, that statement brought us to a point of looking at some things that we could do. Another observation to me is that unless you tell somebody what they're going to provide information on, you're, you know, blowing dust in the wind, because they're not, if they don't know what, if you're gonna ask for a spark plug for a jet airplane, or a spark plug, you know, for a model airplane or whatever, you have to be specific. I don't think that we're talking specific enough today to be able to get any information that is going to be worthwhile. We had discussed some ramifications and some specifications before that talked about keeping the current services and everything. so that you can get apples to apples. Right now, if you just make the request that we're talking about, you're gonna get apples and pears and oranges, and you're not gonna know what you got. And so I think it has to be more specific if you're gonna do it. Third observation is, if I was the city of Des Moines, and I heard our conversation today, and knowing that they're laying off people because they have to do budget cuts to enable themselves to do the delivery of services that they have to do, to expend a couple months' work, whether it's one person, two, whatever, to come back with information that we may just say, that's not what we wanted, or that doesn't look good. I don't know if I was the city of Moines, if I would be willing to put the manpower to that, to do it. And so I'm sitting here right now trying to figure out what is the proper way to move forward with this. If we don't have specifications, we're just blowing in the wind. And
We
if
have the proposal they gave us last time.
well, but I mean,
Oh.
a request for information, what information? That's the problem that I'm having right now. I have always agreed that it would be worth finding out if they were interested or somebody else was interested, just for purposes of trying to save money. I don't know whether we're gonna get there the way we're going right now because of the thoughts that I have, and I don't wanna waste our time, I don't wanna waste the city's time or anybody else that would want to do it. I mean, if you put an RFP out, you put an RFP out specifying exactly what the product is supposed to be at the end. We haven't told them what the product is at the end with the way we're operating right now. And I'm kind of confused as to what to do about it, other than almost doing nothing at this point. And and I came here with the idea in mind that we were going to at least request information that would be comparable to what is going on right now. And so I was thinking that maybe a motion would be in order to take what we had worded in here and just say, and if they deviate anywhere, they have to tell us how they deviated. At least they know somewhat what they have to do. So I'm not sure if we take an action today, if it's going to go anywhere or tell anybody anything or do any good. I think we want to operate as efficiently as we can to keep the rates as low as we can, and that's our motive and nothing more than that. And I'm just not sure that today we're getting there.
Do you think if we left those in, will that clarify that enough for you?
If we left those in and then said if they differ from any of it,
To let us know.
they have to tell us. But again, I'm not the city of Des Moines and I can't speak for them, but I don't think we've been direct enough with anybody to tell them exactly what they should be trying to figure the cost on. Sue makes a good point that we're not sure ourselves, and so I don't know whether it's the right time to ask or not.
You know, the bigger question, I think what this has said to me is that we really need to spend a significant amount of time in understanding the cost of service, because all of these work plans roll up to the cost of service. And we heard from an employee at our finance meeting, if you really want to know how much time I'm spending, that's not in any of the information that you have. So this tells me that maybe and I think it's been suggested before, at least in a committee, that maybe we have, an independent group come in and give us a cost of service study. And, Leslie, I know it's been frustrating to you, and I appreciate you going to your accountant to try to understand it, but I've also heard from some members of, our largest customers from Serdwick, that even though they've had it explained numerous times to them, they don't understand our cost of service. So one of the things we all wanted was to have a very simple structure and for it to be easily understood, and I don't think we're there. Now,
We're not, but maybe that's a finance committee
Oh,
task.
and that's why I'm bringing it up. Absolutely, it's a finance committee, but it rolls over into this decision because you are looking at work plan costs, not salary costs, and then we're going to get a proposal for services.
And maybe they'll get it back to salary cost. They must know it.
And we've had hours, and we know how many people we hire, and we have an indication, even though
We've
it's...
had ours, what? I'm sorry.
We've had, Leslie, didn't we have broken down into like 5 employees, how many hours they spend on different things?
Mhm.
And it was a lot of hours for this type of work. It's way more than the city does for the list of duties. And I think the city has looked at it, and they think they can be more efficient. Even with all the plans going this way and that. We've been trying to pull these teeth out for so long that you have an idea what's going on, but we can't get the figures from the staff. I don't know how to say it. Yeah, Graham?
Jim, I just want to go back to your point. Did I hear you correctly, that you would be more comfortable with this motion if it included some of this language that was in this cover page, the limitations that should reflect one or more of the following, no degradation in level of current services, no waterworks employees would be laid off, and some level of on-site human resources should be provided? Is that the language you were...
Well, that's the language we talked about at the committee meeting, and that's what I thought I was prepared to deal with today.
And you'd be a little more comfortable if that language was part of her motion?
With a caveat that says, if they find, that they have to deviate from something, they have to tell us, because we want apples for apples.
Leslie, would you be willing to
I
amend to
certainly
include
would.
that?
Yep.
I would be fine with that as the person who seconded it.
Do you want to make a motion, or do we want to discuss
We
more?
have a motion and a
Motions.
friendly amendment. that
Friendly
she's
amendment,
accepted.
second.
Yeah.
Do we have a second then?
Graham was the second.
I was the original second.
Okay. Do we discuss again, or we vote?
You can do whatever
You
you
can
want.
Well,
vote. You can
I think
discuss. You can do whatever you want.
before we vote, we gotta, I believe that what EJ is telling us is we have to be very careful as to make sure that everybody knows what our motives are. And the motive is not governance at all. The motive is to try and be as efficient as we possibly can. And this is one area that we've at least looked at to see if there's some efficiencies there. And the city of Des Moines has agreed that they would look at it if we asked them. That's it.
I agree.
And you're absolutely right. If it comes back with not much savings or no savings, it's going to have to be significant to be swaying you to do something like that. But unless we ask the question, we don't know. But we want to make sure the question is asked correctly and everybody knows why we're doing it.
Okay. Should we have a vote?
Can somebody
Yeah,
tell me
EJ.
what the motion is?
Pat,
I'm sorry,
any
I'm
luck?
trying to be funny, I don't understand.
No, it's good.
Rick, do you want to summarize it?
I could take a swing at it. It's my understanding that the motion that's before the board as amended with the consent of the mover and the seconder is that the board
direct staff to request the City of Des Moines to provide a response to a request for information concerning potential services they could provide to the Des Moines Water Works with respect to human resources services, with the understanding that such services must be consistent with the statement of limitations and intent to the effect that the proposal must reflect human resource services without limitations concerning degradation of current level of service, that no waterworks employees, staff would be laid off, and that some level of on-site human resources services would be provided under the terms of the response to be provided by the city. That's a little bit awkward, but I think that's the gist.
You're darn close.
Did you get that?
Yes.
Okay.
I imagine they'll type it out each day.
Well, it's not important that I understand it.
It's good. I'm glad you brought that. Okay. Shall we have a vote? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay. This will go to the next item. A request authorization for CEO and general manager to execute agreement for the professional services for Operations Center stormwater collection system improvements.
Sure. If you'll allow me, I'll just summarize that with the rainstorms that we've experienced prior to last year, we've known we've had in certain heavy thunderstorms, water would back up in some low spots within the fluor treatment plant area. And in between 2008, 9, and 10, those seem to be far more frequent. So we had a study done to look at just what would be the best way to alleviate those problems. And in 2010, Stanley Consultants identified 3 areas. That's their 1A, B, and C in the summary, such as installing 2 new pumps, which increases the capacity of our ability to remove stormwater when we have the plant area isolated. And that's really where a lot of our issues are. When we're in flood conditions, we have to close off the storm sewer that drains by gravity, and we have to pump the water out. So with the recommendation, we need to install larger pumps. We need to install a new, what they're calling a force main, and a new section of gravity sewer, and then modify the existing wet well where these pumps would set. So, and then upgrade the electrical system. That was the recommendation that came out of the study. So what we've asked for is some outside consulting help to proceed then and design these upgrades for us. We sent out an RFP, 4 proposals came back, and after reviewing those, staff's recommendation, which we gave to board planning, was to retain Snyder and Associates, contingent upon negotiating terms and conditions acceptable to staff and reviewed by legal counsel. And their fee was $60,000 for that work. So what we're recommending to the board today is to authorize me as CEO and general manager to execute a professional services agreement with Snyder and Associates for this project, contingent upon negotiating of terms and conditions that are acceptable, and subsequently would be reviewed by legal counsel.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion?
The planning committee did look at this item with the staff at our last meeting, and we concurred with the direction they were going and the solution they were attempting to make this improvement. So we was in agreement with this recommendation.
Any other?
I'm just curious, because we know what happened in '93. If we would have had pumps with this kind of capability, would we have flooded?
Yes.
We would have flooded in 93.
Went over the
93 flood would not impact us that way today because we raised the levee 6 feet, because we overtopped the levee.
Okay, I stated that wrong. If we had the levee in place
Yeah.
and we had another flood like 93, would we still be operational as the waterworks?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Put your life on it.
Well, we knew in '08, from the '08
Yeah.
flood, the '08 flood
A dollar.
was our second highest of all time, and we had little boils that would come up, because again, the plant's overlain by sand, and as you get differential between the floodwaters on the outside of the levee and on the inside, water's gonna rise on the groundwater, in the groundwater.
This
Now,
is
one of
for
the
keeping that out.
One of the things we've learned since the '93 flood was we can isolate our gallery system so that we're pumping heavily just from that section of the gallery that's nearest the plant, and that helps keep the plant area dewatered. That helps immensely. But I'd just as soon not test things again under the '93 flood, frankly, but we have facilities in place to deal with that. And this would certainly help when rainstorms deluge the
Sure.
inside of the plant when we've got floods.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item C, acceptance of 2011 flooding station intake repairs.
Yes, just last fall, we brought a contract forward to renovate the flooding station, which keeps our recharge ponds full. And Herberger Construction was awarded that contract of a little over $63,000. They completed that work satisfactorily for us. We had one change order. Part of it was replacing some pipe support rods, which we took bids for that in the event we needed it, and indeed we ended up doing that additional work for $9,000. And then there were some reinforcing bars on concrete that were submerged below the buildup of sediment and sand that we had the contractor remove. So that was a little over $3,500. So the final contract amount is $76,440. It was work well worth and needing to be done, and we're bringing that forward to accept that contract with Herberger Construction in that amount.
Do your motion.
Second.
Discussion.
I just have a question when it comes to change orders, and I think you did a nice job on this one, Randy, of outlining this, but it's my understanding that the changes that occurred on this were because of our recommendations, and our engineers knew that we might have to replace the pipes, that they were worn. The reason I bring that up is so often we are approving things with such a small difference, and then you see that the total comes in at 20% over. There could have been another bid that would have been within that range, but
Correct.
this 20%, they were all things that we had requested to be changed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item D, request authorization to solicit bids for the 2012 Fluor Plant roof replacements and establish the date of the public hearing as date of April 2012 board meeting.
Yes, as part of our capital program and infrastructure reinvestment, we're bringing forward a contract, engineering completion for re-roofing our central stores building. That was one of the original buildings constructed back in the 1920s at that complex. It's been roofed several times since that time, but the particular roof that's on there now is probably about 25 years old, and so we're needing to go in and replace that. I think engineering is estimating that roof would be about $108,000 to replace. And then we've got several other smaller buildings that the roofs need to be replaced. They can be maintained if we can't get to them this year, but we list several there on the West High Lift Pump Station building, the carbon dioxide building, the water production shop, and the carbon building. And those will be bid based on alternates, and as many of those that we can do for the $155,000 budget that we have, we will do so. So that's what we're bringing forward today, is to authorize staff to solicit those bids for the roof replacement program here for 2012, and establish the next board meeting date, the April board meeting, as the public hearing date.
Hear a motion?
Move.
Second.
Any discussion?
I just have one question on a board I once sat on. I've discovered after some time that roofing makes me think of it, that the bids for roofing were written so narrowly on a particular roofing product that there was only one entity in town that could bid on it.
Oh,
And-
right. Okay.
Because it was
The
a
rubber.
flat roof.
Mhm.
And Randy, I'm just asking, I'm not sure that I know the answer to this question. Our bids are wide enough and to allow people and to bring, the bidders to come forward with different products and different materials and maybe even methods, so that we get the broadest range of bidders possible, correct?
Yeah, that's my understanding, and I'll have Gary address that, Gary Benjamin. Or
It's not open to every roofing system, but it's open to enough that we will get adequate competition. for bids.
There's multiple roofing
That's
systems.
correct. And even one of the roofing systems that we did spec around, there's multiple entities or roofing contractors that can install that system too. So we're not, we kind of did that unfortunately at the Carlisle building on the build rehab, and that's why we came back and we did it. But this one, I think we had like 6 or 7 bids when we did this type of contract last year. We'll endeavor to get that same.
That's good. I figured that. I mean, I see every time we get a response, we get plenty of bids, and what kind of keyed me into my previous experience was the same bidder was the only bidder, and at some point I raised the question. So.
Yeah, the one bit of, not clarification, but just additional comment on that. The roofing system that's on that roof now, it would be one that, there might be a couple of roofers who could put that on, but it's was a Garland roofing system. And back in the 80s when we put that on, that happened to be one of the projects I worked on. You had single ply membrane roofs, which were coming into their own then, or you had this product, which was kind of a rubberized roofing felt that you used asphalt with. And we decided to try that system on this roof, and we put a lot of single ply membranes on a lot of the other roof systems to get a comparison of what would last. Well, we've gotten 25 or so years out of this Garland roof. It was
Pretty good.
tend to be a little more expensive, frankly, than the single plies. And so even today, I think single ply membrane roof systems are going to be less expensive. And so you always have that judgment as to which way do you go. And we've had a tendency to go with the single ply membranes. We had with the filter building, we tried more of a higher grade roof system, and that came in at a real high price. So we're more than likely we're at the single ply membrane to stretch our dollars out.
How do we get
Those
our
hold up
list
pretty
of,
They hold up well, and for
They
a long
do.
time, really.
We've been
It's
getting
a
about
patch.
15 plus or minus years into them.
how do we get our list of bidders?
We end up advertising through the plan houses, and we get just about any local commercial
So
contractor.
it's out
signs up.
pretty broadly.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had, I'm not sure we've drawn anybody from Cedar Rapids in, but I know several years back, Cedar Rapids company even came in and did the roof, but most of it's all been local contractors in the last 10 years or so.
Great. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item E, First Amendment to Site License Agreement with Telcorp Realty LLC.
Yes, Telcorp locates a site out at the Wilchinski standpipe. That's our southeast standpipe that's near Park and Indianola, in that vicinity. New Singular Wireless PCS is the successor company for Telcorp. So Telcorp has agreement with us to locate the facilities on that site. And what they're after now is to run, extend, and get fiber optic service to their site for their 4G service. And the current easement that they have doesn't encompass what they need to do. They're simply running about 30 feet, as I understand, Gary, of wireless or fiber from 2 buildings that are on site. And the current agreement that, or easement that we have with them doesn't cover that for this 30 feet that they need to install. So that's what this particular agreement is doing, is allowing them to put this fiber between the 2 buildings they have on site. It doesn't negatively impact any part of our use of that site. And so that's what we're bringing forward, is this amendment for board approval.
Do I hear a motion?
So- Second.
Any discussion?
I have been on this board 8 years, and I didn't know that we had cell phone equipment on the Norman Wilchinski standpipe site. I don't even know what that is. So this made me wonder, do these things really need to come to this board? I mean, there's no financial. I'd ask our legal counsel, why would something like this come to the board? I'm just curious.
Typically, on most of the sites, we do get pretty good revenue from them, and I assume we've gotten revenue on this one.
There's revenue on this one, and the underlying agreement was approved by the board 10 or 15 years ago, I think. And, 12 years ago. And frankly, whether this needed to come to the board or not for this particular amendment was a bit of a close call.
Okay.
And after discussion with staff, I think it was our consensus that we bring it back to the board so they'd be informed of what was going on.
Thank you.
You know, I think that's I think that's a good decision. I think when it's close like that, you would err on the decision and bring it to the board. There's a record there.
Right.
And maybe it's good for us to be reminded there are pieces of equipment and property out there that we're unfamiliar with. So that's a good point, but I think you made the right call.
And since we were changing the footprint, we also decided we'd update to get the right name of the party, because this is one of these telecom merger and acquisition chains.
Sure.
It's actually AT&T is behind this and in between it. But so we updated the notice clauses and some other things that bothered engineering. But the main thing was to change the footprint. But quite possibly it could have been done without board approval.
No, I was just curious. Who was Norm? That's what I want to know.
Oh, yeah.
Really, who was Norm Wilchinski?
How do you get a
You know,
standpipe
I don't
named
have the background on
You don't know
Norman
either?
Wilchinski, no. But he was
He's an old board member.
from the board member.
So your day could come.
Yeah.
You could have
He's on the board.
There's hope.
On the wall.
Oh.
Yeah, he's in one of those pictures.
Okay.
Sorry, Sue, we can't always hear you, and with Rick, I think it's just me, but we can't always hear you back here.
I'll try to do a better job. Thank you.
I'll keep my voice up.
Thank you.
We'll speak up.
Thank you.
Okay, any more comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Go to the information items, committee reports. Jim, do you have anything on planning?
At the planning meeting, we talked about the stormwater system that was on the agenda tonight. We also discussed the possibility of having the staff's been looking at the ponds of water south of West Des Moines, or in West Des Moines now, and west of 35, I-35, and looking
East
of 35, and looking at the possibility of how would they fit into the water system as far as providing extra storage. And so we talked about that, and they're moving forward with their studies that they're doing on that. Wilchinski site, we talked about it, but it was for another reason that will probably come back maybe at another board item. Is from MediaCom is interested in joining Waterworks and City of Des Moines in building a new building. So that discussion took place. That'll probably move forward at some point. And an update on the vision plan that is being prepared, and that is still moving forward, and they're looking at a technical advisory committee that might be put together to work with Waterworks staff and the community as a whole to develop all this land that we put into that plan that went forward. And staff indicated to us that they had created a second appeal to FEMA on the requested money that was denied earlier. And that request is going to Washington DC FEMA staff, I understand.
And on the sand pits, or ex-sand pits, it was good Randy checked because they were actually up for sale. And it was their only chance maybe to get these. And rough calculations, they could provide us 2 to 4 months, 2 months water supply in a drought.
Yeah, it depends, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm
there's.
just kind of wondering what the drop plan is.
Yeah.
And it's something that might be a lot cheaper and a lot easier to do than a low-head dam.
Oh,
Yeah, we've got,
bring that up. Who would even want to bring it down?
well, there's a way to do it, a low-head dam, and make it environmentally friendly and address issues. But it's expensive.
Yeah.
And
10 or 20 years.
and is out there ways, so there's opportunities, we think, with the sand pits, plus with our success we've had with the Crystal Lake sand pit that's on our property.
It's cleaner water
has
when we
been-
get it.
Has been very positive, so
Good.
it's worth pursuing this if, if the price is respectable, and
Uh-huh.
we think it can be.
Is that about it, Jim?
That's it. Yep, that's it.
Okay, Sue, how about finance?
Finance, we discussed, I think in great deal, the Des Moines Waterworks and City of Des Moines subcommittee information. Leslie, I do just want to tell you thank you very much for all the work you've done on this. I know it's been frustrating, and I appreciated you allowing us to have this discussion when you were here. You were on vacation last month, and I think we've just all learned a lot more. What I would say as the chair of finance, however, is I don't think our work is done. And what I hear from you is we need to do a much better job of understanding what our costs are. And so
Right.
I'm going to ask Randy if we could add to our finance meeting for this next month for us to truly know what our costs are. And between now and then, if we could not look at work plans, if we could not look at the time that the HR folks have spent on strategic initiatives, because quite frankly, that's not going to come back as part of a proposal from the City of Des Moines. If we could look truly at HR-only items, I still want, as the chair of finance, to be able to give this group a number that we all agree to is the number that we spend on HR, not with all the peripheral work plan information. But I think that will help you as you move ahead.
Yeah, well.
So a lot of time was spent on that, but we didn't have consensus as to what our number is. We'll try to get to that number so that we have apples to apples. And then the other thing that I would like, if it's not at the April, at the May meeting, is for us to really get into the cost of service study. I'm continuing to hear from CERWIC groups that even though it's been explained to them numerous times, they don't understand how we come up with our cost of service. So if we can, as a board, have a discussion at finance, what it is that we can do to make this a simpler process and to ensure that our customers believe that they are getting this. And I have a couple of ideas, but I don't want to throw that out without us having a discussion. I'm sure all of you may have some ideas too. So if we could add those things for the next couple of meetings. We also, just as an information, talked about the fundraising for Waterworks Park, and Gary and Randy had shared with us some information on what they're doing moving forward. But I appreciated all of you being at the finance meeting. Thank you.
So then, do you mean, will we have some, I had said, I don't know if it was a committee meeting now or a board meeting, but I mean, since we are financially responsible for the budget and everything, I think that we should be involved earlier. Have some input earlier. I mean, when we get that budget 2 months before it's got to get passed, and if we have to do something with water rates, it's so tight, nothing can happen, and I would have made some changes last year, some things I saw.
Well, I think it's important we start to share that information with the staff now so that you don't feel like we're bringing it at the last minute. And Peggy has really expanded that process to a greater number of months with our involvement. But it's just the overall, I had someone say, it's been explained to us 3 times how you come up with the cost of service study, and I still couldn't tell you how it is. So that's our fault, you know, as a board. We need to, if we are endorsing and saying this is the cost of water, then we need to make sure that we know the formula that's going into that.
Good. Any other comments on finance? Graham, you get to do the fun one.
Well, let me do 2, because can I do the search committee first?
Sure.
We met as a search committee a week ago, end of last week, Friday. And what we decided to do as the first step was to put out a request for information for executive search firms. I have drafted that letter and I have shipped it around to you, and I think Randy was going to share it with the employee groups and employees as need be, and ask for some edits, and some of you have gotten those edits. I realize I didn't get it to you yesterday like I promised, but I got it to you today, so I apologize for that. The goal still being that once we have those edits combined, and Rick's got some too, we'll hopefully get that out in the next day. Pat's help, and Pat being the point of contact, Leslie and I will sign it as committee members. It'll be distributed with the request that they respond no later than April the 10th. We also put in that letter an ability for them to ask questions, so if there are questions and clarifications, then we'll distribute that to the whole group. And then the goal would be that we would meet, I believe, immediately following the next Finance Committee meeting on the 10th to go through these and possibly narrow those submissions down to maybe a group of 3. The number is we'll decide at that time, or we'll have those firms come back and we can ask questions and maybe ask them to make a presentation. And the goal would be to have that meeting on April the 17th. So obviously this process is moving quickly. But look for that letter, give me your edits, and we'll get those out tomorrow. And then once we get those back, we'll start working on the next pieces. Job description, salaries, and those things. So we're off to a start.
Okay. Now, right at the end, because I think the board last time kind of left the end hanging. Are you proposing? I didn't know if we decided or what. I was thinking the last board meeting we were going to have like 3 or 5, you know, whatever the finalists were. Is that coming to the next board meeting?
No, well, we get the responses back on the 10th. We would then narrow that group down to that 3 or 5, whatever that number is.
Well, Sue and I were gone.
Yeah, right, if that's acceptable. And that would be maybe the 17th. And then the committee, depending on what we get there, it would be the goal then of the committee then to make a recommendation to the board, possibly by the April meeting of that search firm. Now,
because with Sue and I gone, it'd probably be good, I don't know about, but Sue, you kind of like to be able to think about it a little before the board.
And that's because the board meeting is I don't have it in front of me, when's the next board?
24th.
So that next week. And Dave, I would leave it up to you. I mean, I wouldn't want to wait till the May meeting.
No.
But if for some reason we wanted to give a little more time to the board meeting, maybe we could have a special board meeting.
A couple days later if there were questions.
If you needed to.
Or if somebody just didn't pop to the top.
Right, so if it went on the 24th, I don't know, Leslie, I would be comfortable with doing that as long as we didn't wait till the May meeting.
No.
Yeah, let's don't do that, but if we need a special meeting, we can do that.
But that way all 5 can, go ahead.
Just to clarify for me, on the 17th, you would make the short list. Okay.
Let me clarify.
Okay.
Hopefully on the 10th, we could make the short list, and on the 17th, we could have them come back and that short list make presentations and ask questions of them.
On the 10th?
On the 17th, they would come back.
No, on the 10th, they come in.
No. On the 10th, we get that's the day that all of their responses are due, their written responses.
Correct.
And we would look at those. And we would hopefully be able to make a determination of the smaller number we'd want to have come back on the 17th.
Have them attend the 17th and interview them?
For lack of a better word, yes.
Or have them present on the 17th?
Yes. And that's a committee meeting on the 17th.
And that'd be the three
Because we're both
Because you guys are
traveling.
both gone.
With the hope that we could make a recommendation by the board meeting. Now, whether the board is ready to act on the 24th or not remains open.
I understand it.
Is that okay?
I just don't know whether we can do it or not.
I don't know.
I understand it.
I don't know either. I mean, I believe me, I understand.
I want to do it
this.
fast, but we want to do it right.
Right, and I don't think these days are anyway written in stone. I mean, we may get responses that are going to take us a lot longer than we can go through them on the 10th and narrow the list down. I don't know that, right? And I mean, I just think we need to be flexible.
Yeah.
But I also think we need to have that clock ticking in the back that we know
We do.
time's going.
When is the 10th? What day is that?
It's a Tuesday.
Tuesday.
That's a Tuesday. There's a meeting there?
Finance and audit
Finance
is.
It would be right after the
Finance and audit? I
We were
was
gonna
thinking
do it right
finance and
after.
audit was the 17th.
No, that's why we picked the 10th, because some of us were
Okay.
going to be here anyway.
That's why I'm off a little bit. I'm a week behind.
Okay.
I'm a week behind. Well, a great goal, and I hope we can meet it. But I agree that if we can't, that a special meeting is in order to do what we
Yeah.
have to do with the information that's being recommended.
I'm real comfortable with that.
Okay.
That's good.
Especially knowing that you guys will be gone for part of that time.
Everybody will,
Yeah.
somebody may just pop up, it's obvious.
Who knows? Who knows? You can never meet a goal if you don't set it.
No, that's right. That's original, what you just said, isn't it?
That's right.
Okay, ready for the next fun thing?
Oh, yeah, the Botanical Center. I don't really have anything new to report on that other than we've discussed last time. Stephanie, the president CEO over there, is going to come and address this board in May. I can say that the process of getting the master plan approved by the city is on track, and it is an exciting plan. I had a meeting with Tom Urban and Fred Weitz and a couple other members of the board, and they were going to go talk to the Des Moines Register about their plan, and I think you may have seen it.
It was in the paper.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think. Uh-huh.
At the end of that meeting, I asked them a little bit about what they knew about our park and the plans that were going on there, and they knew some, and they were quite interested. Stephanie knows quite a bit, and I did suggest to them and to Stephanie, and maybe it starts with Stephanie's presentation here, that we do put our minds together again with that Botanical Center board and the folks that are raising money and all of those activities out there, because these are complementary projects. And I think, and Tom Urban got real excited about, possibilities that are way down the road of, having one entity do the scheduling for all of the, for these entities, and possibly involving Grays Lake and others as a way to share services, but as to coordinate, these real gems in Des Moines. And that just opens up, of course, that could open up a real door to the folks who've been so generous to the Botanical Center to come and be part of this process. As this project is almost an ongoing project of what goes on at the Botanical Center.
And
So,
things they can't do there, we've got land.
absolutely. So, I mean, I just think that this discussion, what starts with Stephanie's proposal in May, I think that's the next logical step then, is to kind of think, how do we put those people together? Because a lot of the people that have been talked to are in the process of learning about this project, and I won't throw out any names, but they're the same people that are involved over there. So we just need to be wise about how we move forward with that. And I can just say, talking to those two guys, they were real enthusiastic about it. Obviously, they're focused today on the Botanical Garden, and rightfully so, but they've raised a lot of money, and they're getting, toward the last phase of that, so. Anyway, that's that. But look
Keep
forward to
busy.
stuff. What's that?
So they need something else to do.
Well, in a way, that's right. And, when Tom said it, and I didn't start the conversation, but when he started talking about, things like that joint scheduling and operational thing, that might be something great, once these things get done. So that's just the type of thinking we need.
And while
it's
they're
nice to
moving,
see.
keep them moving to the next project, not sit down and relax.
Right, and this would be a beautiful thing. I mean, it really could be the right project. So you guys you'll like when she comes. She's going to bring all the plans, and I don't know if Tom will come with her or not. My guess is he probably will.
Good. Any other comments?
Great.
I guess it's Randy's turn.
Okay. I'll make reference to the water quality report that's the last attachment in the packet just before the schedule. A couple things to highlight. And we tried to do this, we started this last year, doing quarterly updates on water quality issues or watershed issues. Hexavalent chrome, which also may be known as chrome 6, is likely going to be required or added by EPA to what they call the unregulated contaminant monitoring list. They do that periodically, add contaminants that come along, they aren't regulated yet, but require utilities to take samples to determine do these particular contaminants exist and where do they, and in what concentrations. So we've done some a little advanced monitoring, and our hex chrome or chrome 6 numbers are shown there in the middle. The Saylorville water we produce out of that plant was 0.04 parts per billion. Fluor is 0.23 parts per billion, and the McMullen plant was 2.6 parts per billion. Now that's compared with the standard that's out there for is total chrome, total at this point, and that's 100 parts per billion, which EPA could lower that down to 60. And chrome 6 is part of the total chrome makeup. Well, we were curious on just why McMullen had somewhat elevated numbers, and really what it comes down to is the source of our lime that we use at that plant. Mississippi lime, which is a Missouri supplier, that, as the memo shows here near the bottom, that had a total chrome of 15 parts per million and a chrome 6 of 7.3. And I'm wondering whether that should be parts per billion rather than parts per million. But so we were pretty certain through the other samples that we had taken out at the McMullen plant, at the wells especially, that the source of the elevated chrome that we did see, chrome 6 at the McMullen plant, was due to the source of the lime. Well, it so happens we changed that source of supply at year end, and starting we're using this Western lime supplier, which is a supply out of Wisconsin. And you can see it's a little bit higher than the Linwood lime, but still quite a bit lower than the Mississippi product. So as things would have it, we are fortunate that Western's a little bit lower. Chrome 6, a standard, likely is not going to be developed for several years yet. EPA will go through a number of additional tests and studies to get to that point. But it is a contaminant that's in the news. California has been the real target, and they set a real aggressive goal of 0.02 parts per billion for chrome 6, which is 20 parts per trillion. And we had to send our samples out to a lab in Indiana because there's no Iowa labs that have the equipment that can monitor that at those low concentrations. So thus far, we're still well under any chrome standards, and but it's likely will be required starting in 2013 and 14 to do whatever the required round of sampling that EPA will designate as part of this unregulated contaminant monitoring rule list.
Would we ever be in a position to do the testing ourselves? Or is that something we'd always
We'd probably always send that out.
I'm just curious enough for any
Yeah, whatever I don't know the protocol for the test, and that's part of what the,
right.
I understand that the state hygienic lab, they'd have to buy either $250,000 or $500,000 worth of equipment, and they just don't feel they'd have the number of samples to begin to even come close to paying for it. So, and we likely are going to be in the same boat. Then just on the back side of that, I had mentioned before we received our new operating permit, and so this year is this locational running annual average reporting for the distribution samples that we take for disinfection byproducts rule compliance. So our lab is on top of that. First quarter treatment, I had mentioned last month about ammonia, and we're we believe we're safely past that ammonia time period, and this year we just didn't get up that high in the rivers, thankfully. But it does cause us to feed extra chlorine to offset and neutralize whatever the ammonia is in the river, so in the river source water. So we're back to more normal operations as of now from chlorination. And then lastly, in this environmental piece, Linda Kinman has been working with Dallas County and some other individuals who Dallas County received a HUD grant from the state to create this watershed authority. And we have a June deadline, or that group does, to create the 28E organization. And so whether or not our legal counsel is going to get involved with that, I guess that group has to decide that. But
I did the first draft already.
did you? Okay. So that's starting, and down the road, it offers some real promise to be eligible for funding if indeed there are some grant monies out there for watershed work. So we're excited about all those things.
I want to,
Yes.
where it said that discussions have occurred with the group regarding how farmers can market themselves to absentee land.
Oh, yes. Mm-hmm.
I was talking to a woman that works at the DNR, and there's some kind of a project going on with the state where they're reaching out to like elderly women landowners, farmers, that own farm ground, because there's been a real problem with them kind of being taken advantage of, and farmers, maybe there were conservation measures on the land and they want to inform them out and they don't really know, and they're helping them, Drake's helping them with leases and all kinds of stuff. So I wonder, I'll see if I can get a contact, because that might be these kind of farmers would be somebody they'd be interested in, I think. But it's kind of a neat project they're doing to help women that own land to protect it.
Right.
I'll ask about that and see if I can get you an information.
Yeah, that'll be fine. Appreciate that.
Okay.
I'll report our LP Moon ASR well. Yeah, we had to take it out of service here a few weeks ago. We had an electrical short of some sort. We weren't certain if it was at the motor, because if you remember that particular ASR well, we went through about 3 pumps before we finally got a reliable pump. And so we have a contractor who pulled the pump and all the about 600 feet of column and electrical conduit, and not conduit, but the conductor. And it ends up being the electrical conductor failed on it, not the motor itself or the pump, thankfully. But so we've got some repairs we're doing with that. We can get that back up and in service, ready to, we might still have some month or two to put additional water in and store it before we use it this summer. But it appears where the water from our distribution system enters the well, we have a drop pipe, and apparently there was turbulence at that outlet stage, which caused that conductor to move around and short it out at near that location. So we're working with the contractor again to create a little different connection point, and maybe even lower the fill tube down a little bit lower, closer to the pump, to remove this agitation point from the conductor. So we've got a couple of weeks that that'll be, more weeks that that'll be out of service. And then lastly, the Arboretum. Folks have noticed trees are popping. Mike Woods reports we're about a month ahead due to this seasonal weather being about a month ahead of normal. And so in about a week is when he projects we'd be at our peak blossom. So for the crabapple show next week should be it. We're seeing some of the early bloomers have come out, and so the late bloomers he feel will be the latter part of next week. So in about a week, and we'll do our normal press release and alert the public to come to Waterworks Park to enjoy the crabapple.
So how far ahead is it than what?
He said a month.
A month, yeah.
Randy, will you be routing traffic in a different manner or like last year? Or could you kind of, because a lot of people watch this, could you let them know what will be happening?
Yeah, I guess I've lost track of honestly how we did do that last year. I know we have two with our main gate that comes off opposite Gray's Lake, and people can come in through our main entrance here and access the Arboretum, and then there's even an access point from the west by our barn. So we'll have something as we do this press release. We'll identify if we're going to end up trying to channel traffic a little bit better. We'll make sure that that's clear to the public so they know what is the easy way to access and come into the Arboretum. That's all I have, other than committees. On the planning side,
Sure, here with you.
service line maintenance program, we want to start that conversation so we can get an RFP put together and make sure we include all of the requirements that we want to include with that. The Joint Southwest Feeder Storage Project, West Des Moines Water has approached us that they have a developer needing water that's south of Highway 5. And we've had conversations with Norwalk, who's interested in getting a second main connection to our system. And with our looking after Cummings needs, it looks like that would be a three-way project. So we'll bring that forward to the board for discussion. And then Polk County Rural Water District number 1, Saylorville, unincorporated area, we presented them a proposal for total service here last week, and we'll bring that forward for discussion with the board.
Which area is that? Is it around Saylorville Lake? Or?
No, it's southwest of Ankeny. And if you could take Irvindale Drive is kind of a major north-south in Ankeny, and it's about a mile south of there, Dave. 66th Avenue will tee in, and 6th Drive will tee in that location. That's where Saylorville is.
How many customers are in that area?
They've got about 400 or 500, I believe. And they're pretty well maxed out on their lots. They might have one or two empty lots, but
it's
they're pretty
full.
Landlocked, yeah. And then finance and audit, we did receive our invoice from the partnership for the contribution for 2012, and I know the board will want to discuss that. I want to be able to provide kind of a quarterly staffing update for the board.
Can we go back to the Greater Des Moines Partnership?
Right.
It was your recommendation for it not to be approved in the current budget, is that correct?
We included $10,000 in our current budget.
10,000 in the current.
Which was as opposed to 50,000, who has been the 12 or 13-year contribution that we made.
Okay, so this is...
And 2012 is the last year of the second or third 5-year, maybe it's the second 5-year pledge period. So we'll present some numbers that potentially we could increase that from savings, but we'll present that discussion and we'll see what the board pleasure is on that item.
Randy, could we...
I'm sorry, did the partnership make a specific dollar request?
Yeah.
And what was that?
It's 50,000.
It was 50 again, even though they got 10 this year?
Even though that was just in our budget.
Oh, okay, so they haven't gotten the reduced amount yet?
No.
No.
We have...
I'm up to speed. I'm sorry. I get you.
Yeah. Could we also have from the partnership, I would think they would have enough time to give us this in that amount of time, other organizations around the city of Des Moines and what their giving level is?
Mm-hmm.
That would be very helpful, I think, for us to have. And with that, you know, what I'm looking for is how many employees do they have? And I would think the partnership would have the best access to what those numbers are.
Okay. They did provide an update of the information they provided us 2 or 3 years ago. So I do have that bit of information.
Okay,
So.
thanks.
So those were the two items.
And go back,
And then-
I'm sorry, what's the quarterly staffing?
Quarterly, I know there were some comments made at one of our, I think probably at the committee level, curious about how we filled jobs, what jobs have we filled, what haven't we refilled, just what's the overall status of that. So I was going to go back to the fourth quarter last year and our first nearly 3 months this year, and just review the positions that we've had open, retirements predominantly, and what have we filled, what haven't we refilled.
So with this in mind, the HR costs, will we be able to have that discussion to try to get to more of a true, not work plan cost, but true dollar cost? And then maybe we could just begin the discussion if we have time with the board members there, the cost of service study, and that's just more of a board discussion. What is it that we think we need to do to try to make this friendlier or easier to understand, or to ensure that we know what our costs are?
Yeah.
And the difference between budgeted dollars, real dollars and work plans, you know.
Sure. Yeah, the cost of service is always a challenge to explain in a, I don't know if I can call it a clear way. We do that cost of service report each year, and from the executive summary, and I'll go back and review that piece of it. The process itself is many spreadsheets, and it consolidates everything we do in work plans down into buckets that gets identified as to what is part of wholesale cost of service, what is inside city, and all the other areas that we do service. So we'll come prepared and try to better understand what areas you'd like to have us better describe for you.
Yeah, and on this one, I don't think you have to really come prepared on the cost of service study. I just would like for us to have a discussion of where maybe the misunderstanding has been between, when we get a proposal from the city of Des Moines. That's not going to be in a work plan budget, so how would our dollar budgets relate to work plans? More or less?
Okay.
Right?
All right. So we'll have those 4 items in for finance and audit, add the HR costs, continuing that discussion, as well as have, again, some discussion on cost of service.
Okay.
Is this where you're going to add the CEO reviews as well, or are you going to have a
It'll be a separate meeting that follows.
Okay. So there will be a separate meeting.
Gavel out, gavel in.
Okay.
And then schedule-wise, just looking at the very last page of the board packet. Of course, we've already talked about planning and finance on the 3rd and the 10th.
The 10th and the 10th for the search
With
committee.
another 10th
And the
for the
17th
search, and then the 17th will be a search committee meeting. Unless at the 10th you decide on some other date, we'll be flexible there.
Always a footnote.
Right. 24th is board meeting, and then also on the 24th at 6 o'clock is the quarterly Central Iowa Regional Drinking Water Commission meeting. That'll be at the Urbandale Public Library on 86th Street. Again, at 6 o'clock.
And if any board members want to go, they're welcome to go.
Okay.
Get free food.
Free food.
I do.
I anticipate they may have some members, I don't know how many of them are aware of my retirement announcement, but they may have.
We're gonna have cake too.
Well, I don't know if they're gonna have cake. They may have some balloons and say, well, okay, it's a good thing. But I think they may have some questions on, maybe want to know what the board's doing with the search process or whatever.
Save
So,
money, just not hire anybody.
But Whenever you
No.
care to respond, Dave.
No, that would be a
I'm
very.
just joking. I would never.
How long would you save money?
Yeah.
So that's all I have.
3 days.
Okay. Anybody else have anything?
No.
Okay, the meeting is over.
Thank you.